In the mid-1950s, the Austrian director Ernest Mariska wanted to bring to the cinema screen the story, in a much more fictional than real way, of Empress Elizabeth of Austria, better known as Sissi. Mariska has always been an unconditional admirer of this woman. He considered her one of the most captivating characters of the late 19th century. It was a post-war time when Austria wanted to forget its annexation to Nazi Germany and regain its prestige. However, for Mariska, the real life of Empress Elizabeth was too tormented and tragic not to romanticize, and she decided that in her fiction, she would only show a glorious past of the great Empress Sissi. In your movies, you only show romantic events and big moments of emotion, hiding all the dramas, pains, tragedies, phobias, and obsessions that Empress Elizabeth really experienced. And just like that, the director chose Sissi, the Empress, as the theme of his film. He thought that only one person could make the viewer travel to the 19th century with the Empress while watching his films, and that person was Romy Schneider. He was right. When it was released in 1955, the movie Sissi was so successful in Austria and Germany that it surpassed the box office of the movie Gone with the Wind. In Europe, for the film was recognized as a cultural work. In Switzerland and France, it was such a success that it was later shown for free in schools. Romy Schneider became a famous face and undoubtedly helped make Sissi, the Empress, even more famous and beloved worldwide. That unfortunately had a life as dramatic and tragic as that of the Empress, whom she portrayed in films. And today, in this video, you will learn a little more about her story here on this channel. Rosemarie Magdalena Albach was born in Vienna in 1938. She was the daughter of actors Wolf Albach-Retty and Magdalena Schneider and had a younger brother. Her parents were rarely present in the children's lives. It was Romy's grandmother, Maria Schneider, who took care of her and her brother when their parents were on a film set. In 1943, his father, Wolf, met the actress Trude Marlene and left his mother, Magda, for her. The divorce was finalized in 1945. Romy and her brother stayed with their mother. In 1949, Romy was placed in an Austrian boarding school, a religious institution located near Salzburg. From a very young age, she showed a great passion and talent for theater and performed in several plays at the school. When she left the boarding school in 1953, she returned home and found her mother married to the owner of a restaurant called Hans Herbert. Romy was a teenager and did not get along at all with this man, always referring to him as my mother's second husband. However, with her mother's approval, he would become her agent. At that time, the film producer, Kurt Ulrich, was looking for a young woman to play the role of the daughter of the main character, which was played by her mother, Magda Schneider. She suggested her own daughter, who passed the tests and at 15 appeared on the cinema screens under the name Romy Schneider Albach, and so began Romy's brilliant career. In 1954, she brilliantly portrayed the English sovereign, Queen Victoria, in the movie The Young Years of a Queen, and in the following year, he acted in the film The Emperor and the Baker. Both films were a great success, and both were directed by Ernst Mariska. But it was just the beginning of this great successful partnership, as we all know that the star of Romy Schneider in the prime of her 17 years shone brightly when she played Empress Sissi in 1955. His mother Magda also appeared in the film, playing the role of Duchess Ludovica, the Empress's mother. The film was so successful that the director quickly began shooting Part 2, Sissi the Empress, and it was as successful as the first. Romy Schneider, who was already starting to feel labeled as a sweet and romantic young lady, began to complain about the inconveniences of always wearing period costumes, especially that super heavy wig that had to be worn. The director ignored her complaints and said the wig was indispensable for portraying the Empress, since Sissi is known for her enormous hair that reaches her heels. On the other hand, thousands of girls all over Europe are copying the princess style. Long curly hair, a defined waist, and flared skirts. Romy started filming the third episode, Sissi and her fate, already with much reluctance and eager to disconnect as quickly as possible from the character of Sissi. As is normal, she wanted to act in other roles, something her mother and especially her stepfather did not want. It is said that the two had great personal reasons for her to continue making the lucrative movies of the Sissi saga. In the case of your mother, it was because her career had already been declining since the end of the Second World War. Her career was ruined because it was known that she frequented the circle of friends of the great Nazi leaders, and also that she had an affair with Hitler himself. He also declared that Magda was one of his favorite actresses. And to top it all off, Magda was exempt from all taxes during the Nazi regime in Germany. As for her stepfather, who managed Romy's fortune, the fact that she wanted to stop playing Sissi was a terrible blow for him, as he received very high fees, which he invested entirely in restaurant and hotel chains. And the proposal came to shoot the fourth film of the Sissi saga, and Romy firmly opposed it. Later, she herself declared that she hated that image of Sissi and admitted that she refused, without thinking twice, the many millions offered to her to film a fourth time in the role of Sissi. Romy, who was only 20 years old, wanted to fly and explore other roles. In 1958, she filmed Girls in Uniform and received many compliments and good reviews for her performance. In that same year, she traveled to Paris to shoot a new film, Christine. Upon arriving at the airport, she was greeted with a bouquet of flowers by a stranger, Alain Delon, the actor with whom she would have a romantic pairing in the film. He didn't speak German, and she didn't speak French, but it was love at first sight. From that moment on, they began an intense romance. Then, they went to live together in Paris. His mother did not really like the relationship, and even said that the man would break his heart. This was probably the best time in Romy Schneider's life, because she continued recording great hits, traveled to the United States to promote her films, and made other works with great directors like Orson Welles, and with other great actors like Jack Lemmon. Everything was happiness, and Romy worked tirelessly. One day, returning from the United States to Paris, when she arrived home, expecting to find her fiancé, she encountered a big and unpleasant surprise. Alain Delon was not waiting for her. What awaited her was a note with a bouquet of flowers. The note said the following: "I went to Mexico with Natalie, a bunch of stuff, Alan." Natalie was the actress Natalie Barthélemy. And this bunch of stuff he was referring to was surely that she was expecting his child. And that's how Alain Delon broke Romy Schneider's heart, after 5 years of an intense and passionate romance. Romy and Alain were the most famous and beloved couple in all of Europe. And they say that the two were about to announce their engagement. As you would expect, Romy was completely devastated. Truly, as her mother said, Alain Delon broke her heart. However, she continued to live in Paris. She loved that city. She received support from her mother and returned to work. The movie What's New, Pussycat was released in 1965. This movie received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Song. And it was in this movie that Woody Allen acted in cinema for the first time. She went ahead and in 1966 married the actor and theater director Harry Mayen, and they had a son, David. In the next 2 years, Romy dedicated herself almost exclusively to her life as a mother and wife. Over the years, she continued to maintain a cordial relationship with Alain Delon, and the two worked together again in the movie The Swimming Pool in 1969. Years later, the actor said in an interview that Romy was the woman of his life, and that he deeply regretted not having married her. Romy continued her married life, But her husband, Harry, who had been tortured by the Gestapo, Hitler's secret police during World War II, suffered from severe depressive episodes, and this made the relationship very difficult. Romy started seeing other men, and after 9 years of marriage, they got divorced. She got custody of her son David, but had to give half of her fortune to her ex-husband. A fortune that was much smaller than Rome imagined, since she discovered, after her stepfather's death in 1968, that he was swindling her, was her agent, and was diverting enormous sums of her money. In 1972, Romy was Sissi again, this time in a supporting role in the film Ludwig, the Mad King of Bavaria, by director Luchino Visconti. On December 18, 1975, she married Daniel Biasini, a Franco-Italian 11 years younger than her. He was her personal secretary. Romy was very much in love and showered her new husband with expensive gifts. Shortly after the wedding, she became pregnant, but had a miscarriage after a car accident. Life smiled on the couple. She became pregnant again, and on the 21st of July, 1977, their daughter, Sarah Magdalena Biasini, was born. But the happiness would not last long, as 2 years later, she received terrible news. Her ex-husband, Harry Mayen, who had become completely consumed by alcohol, ended up hanging himself. Romy Schneider fell into a deep depression and even felt guilty for not having given him enough attention. From then on, she also began to drink and take tranquilizers frequently. This ended up harming her marriage with Biasini, who filed for divorce after 6 years of marriage. This divorce was very difficult for Romy. She loved her husband. However, life was about to become infinitely worse for this great star, and this time she wasn't going to be able to recover. On the 5th of July, 1981, an absurd and terrible accident took the life of your beloved son, David. The boy had an excellent relationship with Biasini and with his parents, whom he considered as grandparents. He had gone alone and unexpectedly to their house to visit them. He did not have the gate keys, and as he had done on other occasions, he tried to climb up the bars. Unfortunately, he slipped and got impaled on one of the metal fence spikes. When they realized the situation, they urgently called an ambulance, but the boy had already lost a lot of blood and ended up dying in the hospital. I buried the father and buried the son, but I never abandoned them, and they never abandoned me either, wrote Romy Schneider, absolutely devastated in her diary. The actress tried to reconcile with producer Laurent Petit, her last boyfriend. The two moved in together in an apartment in Paris. However, she only found solace in drinking, smoking, tranquilizers, and the letters she wrote to her deceased son. On May 29, 1982, Patton found her dead in her home. She was sitting in a chair in front of her little desk, where there was an unfinished letter apologizing for canceling a photo session for a magazine. They also found an empty wine bottle and medicine bottles. Many suspected that she took her own life. Officially, the cause of death was recorded as cardiac arrest. The family did not want to conduct an autopsy, and the exact cause of Romy Schneider's death will always remain a mystery. Alain Delon was one of the first to arrive when he received the news of her death. She had made more than 60 films. Many of them were big hits, but it is said that at the time of her death, she was very much in debt, to the point that it was Alain, along with other friends, who paid for the funeral, which was attended by many fans and celebrities. She is buried next to her beloved son in a cemetery in the south of Paris. Neither your mother nor Alain Delon attended your funeral, but the actor was seen a few times visiting your grave alone. He was 43 years old and left little Sarah, his daughter, with only 5 years of age. Some still believe that she took her own life, while others, perhaps the majority, think that her heart simply stopped, unable to bear so much suffering, pain, and disappointment.